You will wait till I call that.
No, you can give me, I can just step out and take it.
Okay. I'm not ready about it. I call this meeting the Upshur County Commission order. We'll begin with a moment of silent meditation and prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Thankfully, we're not in Erie, Pennsylvania, or Buffalo, New York. Sympathy goes out to them. That's quite a bit of snow they've got up there. Jackie, would you please read the minutes from last week's commission meeting?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mary.
With no further business, on motion by Dr. Kenny, second by J.C. Rafferty, the commission adjourned at 3:20 p.m.
Thank you, Jackie. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as read? If not, I would request a motion to approve the minutes. I'll second it, therefore. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's been a long time since I voted. President doesn't vote unless there's a tie, in that case I break the tie. Okay, first on the agenda is now 9:15 on the dot. That was our first appointment only today. Nancy Burgess, Lewis Upshur Animal Control Facility volunteer regarding allegations at that facility.
Well, first of all, I'm here as a citizen of Upshur County, and I'm also here as a volunteer at the shelter. And last week, through the news media, there was an article that the Lewis County Commission had met and directed a letter, I guess, to you all, requesting the removal of several volunteers at the Lewis Upshur County, whatever, town, shelter. And I have to admit, I was a bit shocked to read about it in the newspaper and not know about it prior to that, without notification. I am a volunteer there. I am not one of the ones that has been allegedly charged with, something. But after giving it much thought, I really am requesting that this not be acted on immediately, that we have a cooling off period of about a week and try to do some conflict resolution. I belong to a group called Love for Animals, and it was founded by Nicole English and Robin Keogh. And there have been various people that have been in and out of this group. But basically, the support system that the volunteers provide at the shelter is enormous. And I think if you look at this list, since a lot of the volunteers have become involved, and we've worked with Jan, the shelter manager, what has been known as a kill shelter has kind of lost that descriptor, because really, with all of us working together, we have saved a lot of the animals, dogs and cats alone. And every volunteer that works up there donates their own time, their own money, their cars to transport animals. They work the rescue line daily into the late hours of the night. I think I've taken somebody 5 dogs on Sunday. I have to talk to you about that. But I think because when you get involved in this kind of thing, things become very passionate. And it's kind of like, I'll address it, it is as volatile as the abortion rights issue. People don't really have a middle road on that issue. You're like a pet. And I think that's somewhat true of when someone becomes very passionate about animals. I only was going to go up there as a transporter because I knew I would get sucked in. Second day, I ended up with one dog that was just, I threw it in the car, paid my money, threw it in the car, and took it home because I was told it was going down. So I've already been a foster failure, and, you know, I see the hard work that all of these volunteers do. And I think it's, I just want us to just kind of step back, and I'm asking that you table this and not act on it today, but allow the parties involved to have a discussion with you about all of this and with Jan.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking.
Have you indicated, because I'm not aware that it was in the newspaper.
Oh yeah, it was in the Clarksburg Exponent.
Okay, I did not. Did it indicate the reasoning behind the request?
Well, yes, it somewhat did. It was very inflammatory, and it seemed to be coming from one of the employees of the shelter. And it was over another issue that I'm not going to go about in here today, but it was also about another passionate issue, and I think that's what kind of got things going. So I really would like to see if there can be some conflict resolution about this issue. Are the volunteers all perfect? No. Is the shelter all perfect? No. I think we would all agree to that. But I think we need to work together as a team. You know, there's no kill shelter thing. I mean, I know that there are some dogs that should be euthanized. I mean, some dogs should be euthanized. I mean, you can't, you know, Charleston has gone to a no-kill shelter, and they're having a little bit of growing pains and problems because, you know, if you go totally no-kill, then there are dogs that actually are very dangerous and could cause harm. But, so I'm not advocating for that. All I'm here today is to ask you to please table whenever you're going to vote on it, don't vote on it right away, and allow the parties to come together and allow their concerns to be held.
The policy that is a dispute or is an issue, it's not a policy that Upshur County has in place. It is a policy, as I understand it, Lewis County has adopted. So therefore, you know, we are not directly involved in determining whether or not there should be a reconciling period, or that is something that Lewis County officials involved would have to be agreeable to, not just the Upshur County Commission. Have you had a chance to read the letter that we received from the Lewis County Commission?
I just did read that letter. However, when I read that letter, all I can say is there are some extenuating circumstances, and that's all I'm going to be at liberty to say at this point. And I just feel, because I know we get money from Lewis County, okay, and we are at Codeline Shelter. I think the issue is over possibly a dog biting someone or
That is
something.
the, I think, as I understand from reading the correspondence, and what was not, the letter itself, which is in the agenda today, indicated that the commission provided copies of social media comments that they were concerned about as supporting their statements relative to.
Well, once again, that may be true, but I think you have to think about the situation here and the feeling when you're out there working so hard every day and doing the best that you can do and actually knowing these animals the way we do. And, you know, other dogs have been euthanized, and I don't think anybody has even questioned anything. Is that true or not? Okay, well, I haven't questioned it, but a lot of people haven't questioned it. And I think this just kind of tugged at our hearts because, there were some inconsistencies that we weren't sure about. And usually, and I think Ann will tell you this, when I hear stuff, I usually just go to Jan and say, Jan, you know, what's going on? Let me know what's going on. But if we're together with Lewis and Upshur, how can they mandate one set of rules and we have another set?
Because they have their own area of responsibility. They view their responsibility differently, possibly in this case, than we do. They have a ordinance, or as they've stated in their letter, they've had 3 successive prosecuting attorneys who indicate that issues where dogs have bitten individuals, that dog is considered a vicious dog. Therefore, it needs to be euthanized. Without, if you use the word without exception, we do not take that position after county. However, they are, however, Lewis County is a partner, using that phrase, with Upshur County in the operation of the facility. And as such, they have an interest in ensuring that their ordinances or their policies are held in accordance, and that we, Upshur County, respect their ordinances on this particular matter, even though we do not have the same policy.
Okay. And I can understand that. I would also ask that maybe you look at the statistics of the number of dogs being brought in from Lewis County supposedly, and Lewis County, even though it is bigger geographically than Upshur, the population is not as high as Upshur County. And we've had several court cases, you know, that by law, when there's a court case, the dogs have to be brought to the shelter, and Jan has to, you know, they have to provide, you know, and that is why we all work so frantically to try to get dogs out that are there, because we know we have only so many runs.
Our biggest concern, that at least as I understand from the letter expressed, is that if you have a dog, from their perspective, I'm saying from the Lewis County perspective, if there is a dog that is bitten a human, and that dog, I'm just, from what I've read in their letter, what I perceive is they concern, and the 3 succeeding prosecuting attorneys in Lewis County have indicated there is a liability issue to the county. That if it's a dog that has bitten someone, is adopted or is placed for adoption, and subsequently again bites or inflicts even worse damage to a person, then the county will be liable for potential damages or suit because of their negligence in allowing a dog which has been declared vicious to be adopted or even to be rescued. I think that they would carry it that far. And I know that in reading the literature that was attached to the letter in support of their recommendation to terminate the volunteers, that there was an effort, valiant effort made on the part of the volunteers and the rescue people to allow that dog to be rescued. But that, under Lewis County, would not be a solution because, again, they would still, in their belief, be liable for any subsequent violence that the dog might perpetrate against future owners that were obtained through the rescue service.
Okay, and I think what you're saying is very valid, but I may be wrong, and someone correct me if I am. It's my understanding that we had a dog trainer working with that dog. The rescue was willing to waive any liability that would occur, and they had already found a place for this dog to go.
I don't, and again, I'm not a lawyer.
Well, that's what
I'm saying. I don't know that a third party can waive action. In other words, they cannot waive the liability for Lewis County. Lewis County is the only, if the person that obtains the dog can waive in some manner, but I don't know, I don't know that even would solve the problem in terms of Lewis County's position.
Well, is it possible that we can take a little more time to sort through this, or are you telling me it's a done deal today?
I think, if I may speak, I think that what it comes down to is Upshur County and Lewis County work together because separately we can't afford to do what needs to be done.
I understand that.
And my recollection, the last time we checked, the taxpayers of Upshur County, just Upshur County, have subsidized the dog pound to the tune of $700,000. So the taxpayers, we're having to take money out of general revenue to fund the dog pound operation because there's not enough of the dedicated revenues to operate it. So there's no way that each of the two counties separately could operate and function. But here's the thing, because Lewis County pays half the bills, Upshur County pays half the bills. Lewis County has an animal control officer, Upshur County has an animal control officer. So they do their thing in each county, and then they bring them to the animal control facility, and then there's policies as to how things should be handled there. Each county, because they contribute financially, has the authority to set their own policies. And I don't know how many policies are different between Upshur and Lewis, but I do know the main one is this particular issue as far as a dog that is bitten somewhere. Now, ours is a lot more generous.
I'm very thankful for that, because
Okay.
if any of you would ever set foot inside the shelter for 2 hours, you would see the way the dogs are brought in, and they are scared to death. And when they go into defense mode. And they might actually bite because they're afraid.
Well,
And so I'm really glad that we have a different
And
policy.
I understand that perfectly well, because we have a rescue dog that we got, my family, from the town. He's a little Chiweenier dog, and he's just as sweet as can be until our son picks on him, and then he'll bite him.
And
And I understand that. I understand that, and that's the way a lot of dogs are, but here's the issue. The issue really isn't with Upshur County. Your issue concerns Lewis County. My recommendation would be you go to Lewis County Commission and you talk to them, because the whole crux of this issue is the Lewis County policy. That's what it is. If they had the same policy as Upshur County, there would be no issue. Am I correct? In this particular case.
With the case of the dog, yeah, when
Right. That's what I'm saying. So in this particular situation, you're preaching to the choir here in Upshur County, and because we are in a joint effort with Lewis County, they've made a request to us that we take a certain action here. Now, personally, I wouldn't have a problem with delaying this if it had to be 2 weeks, because we're not meeting 2 weeks, but only on the condition that you go to Lewis County and talk to the Lewis County Commission.
But there's another issue involved as well.
Okay, well,
You spoke of passion.
yes.
I have 3 dogs and 3 cats, so I certainly love animals.
I know you do.
But I think the other issue here, which is the motivating factor in the letter from Lewis County, is the result of actions alleged on the part of volunteers involved. And it's not something that is not uncommon today with social media.
Correct.
People are passionate about animals. People are passionate about children, abused children. And we are and should be passionate. But at the same time, when we, as individuals, post things on the various websites, Facebook, and I'm not even on Facebook, but LinkedIn, or what's the other one called, Twitter, I'm way behind on social things. But when you post those things there, your purpose in doing so may very well be high-minded and motivated by your passion for animals in this case. But once that is posted, and once it goes out to other people who are also passionate, but maybe passionate to an extreme, then things get out of control. People are threatened, as alleged by the Lewis County Commission. Family members and spouses of employees or officials are threatened, and it becomes something way beyond what the initial issue was. But I concur with Darby that this is an issue that is presented to Upshur County for resolution, but really is not of our making or of our. It's certainly of our concern, but it's not of our making. I guess I would like Ms. Cochran, the director of the shelter, to respond to some of the things, and because she certainly has an interest in the daily activities and the management of the shelter to make sure that I've been to the shelter. Yes, my wife will tell you, if it were within my power, I would do the same as she would. I mean, I've gone as far as when I've been out to one of the stores here where people often bring animals to outside the doorway of the store and have them for available. I called my wife and said, "Hey, can I?"
That's your mistake.
And she would, and if she were there, she would call me.
Right. You just throw it in the car and bring it home.
And I've done that before.
So have I.
With cats. We have some. Jan, would you like to respond, please? Are you completed?
Yeah, I'm just, that's all I'm asking, that you please table it and allow the alleged people that are being asked to be dismissed be able to talk to you all about.
Well, Lewis County is who they need to.
Well, but
you're
some of it
explaining to me, we're
concerns
not-
Upshur County too, I believe. So, I would like communication to be very evident. I would like people to be able to try to resolve. I mean, even if the end issue is still the same, the end result is still the same. I would like to give everybody the opportunity to voice their feelings. And that's all I'm asking, because this is the way I feel about it. I can see it from all perspectives. That's what I do. I see it from all perspectives. And there's the good, the bad, and the ugly on all sides, to be perfectly honest with you. But I guess I go back to why I'm here, the animals. And we have a very powerful group of volunteers and dedicated. And I just hate to see, us lose that support for the animals. That's basically it.
Good morning. Yeah, I think one of the biggest concerns for Lewis County is the way they went about it. One, the policy for Lewis County is that if an animal bites, it is euthanized after the 10 days if the owner doesn't take it back. That is policy, always has been policy. When volunteers asked what the state was, we told them, which most of them already knew, and then they went to the prosecuting, when I went to the prosecuting attorney and tried to get something done to resolve the situation. And then they started calling the commission office. And then one of the volunteers confronted an animal control officer and pretty much told him the dog was not going to go down. And I don't know what all was said. I was out sick that week. But it was so bad that another county employee was at the shelter came to Kelly and spoke to Kelly about how the volunteer spoke to John Snyder, Lewis County Animal Control Officer. And this person did not feel that anybody should talk to the way he did, that John got spoke to that day. So then everything went into social media. When our volunteers come up and they fill out the application and they sign everything, they agree to a policy agreement. And it outlines what they're allowed to do and what they cannot do. And the volunteers are asking for dismissal have broken in different ways. You know, so if you're going to allow them to break the rules, then you shouldn't have the policy agreement to start with. You just might have to throw it out. And that's where it's at. I don't know a lot about the whole, you know, I know because, you know, what emails and texts and stuff about the dog. And I know the prosecuting attorney had called me and wanted me to call her, so I did when I came back in. Of course, she was already a grand jury, and then right after I spoke to her secretary, one of the commissioners called me, well, no, take that back, Cindy called me first, the administrator, and said, here's the decision, the policy is this, the commission's sticking to this. So one of the volunteers come in that day and she said, what is the fate of the dog? And I said, as said before, the dog will be euthanized. Like, she went out of the office, she said, by whose word? I said, that's the commission's ruling. Like 5 minutes later, I get a call from Simpson asking me to call one of the commissioners. I called, he said, Jan, this is a done deal. Commission says the dog is down, the dog is in. No more word about it. And so, John and I took the dog to work.
What's your thoughts again? You recommend that we,
Well,
this matter should be brought before the Lewis County.
I think we actually have 2 issues here. One of them is the policy of the Lewis County Commission relative to the disposition of dogs that bite.
Right.
That's an issue that will have to be dealt with the Lewis County Commission. We have our policy, they have their policy. I don't think our policy has been questioned. The Lewis County's policy has been questioned as far as that. Now, the other issue we have, as you just pointed out, we have an agreement that's signed by all volunteers. And you're saying that agreement was violated in this case.
I can give you some examples. It says, don't involve yourself in any decision to euthanize an animal. Do not openly question, criticize, or post anything on social media websites. Decisions made by staff and facilities confirm euthanasia of an animal. That is one thing. So when they put themselves in there to try to save the dog, they did that. It says, right here, for if you got reason termination and reasons for dismissal, the seller says he to Lewis after control policies, volunteer program policies, procedures, disclosing confidential information. It's not to be public what animals are going to be euthanized. We don't have a list of this dog's going to go down this visit. It all goes on how many animals we have in the shelter, the age of the animal, how long the animal's been there, the temperament of the animal. That's how we make our decisions and how full we are. Since the group Love has come in, Love has done a lot of great things, but they're all very passionate people. And I think sometimes their heart does their thinking for them. Since Love has come into working with the shelter, we have not put more than 6 dogs down in a month. Previous to that, coming in, the most we could put down in a year had been 10 per month. I went back from November 2012 to October 2014 and took the numbers. And the most we had put down was 10, the most since they've been involved with us has been 6. It does help having extra hands that can be on the computers and contacting different rescues and putting sleeves out. And then they make their list of who they feel is in danger. You know, like this person, this dog will be the next dog because it's been here the longest. We need to move this dog. They have helped by sponsoring dogs. They have helped with medical care of dogs. They have helped with transporting dogs. So the things they have done have been great. But then the rules that they can't follow that you guys put in place.
My concern, as I stated, I don't question their passion, the individual. But even in violating the rules that they agreed to follow when becoming volunteers, they created, by posting things on social media, they created an atmosphere where others who they did not have contact with, I'm not saying that the volunteers had contact with others who sent some pretty vile postings to various individuals in Lewis County government. We have to, we hear today that we don't take responsibility for our actions many times. That's a problem with society. We refuse as individuals to take responsibility for our actions. There was a time in my life when you could be civil disobedient. You could disobey the law. But in doing so, you understood that you would suffer whatever the penalty involved. But somehow our society has moved to a point where we can disobey. If someone enforces the rule, that they're the bad guys because I should be understood or whatever. I don't believe any of these volunteers intended for this to, for lack of another term, get out of hand. But apparently it has in Lewis County. We have not been impacted, as Mr. Tenney indicated, because we do not have the same policy. But as they are a co-operator of the facility, they have standing to ensure that their rules are followed. It's a dual, and volunteers certainly should understand that when they volunteer to work at our facility, which happens to be in Upshur County, that even though it's in Upshur County, it still has to, we still have to maintain some degree of cooperation with Lewis County, because they again are co-owners, co-operators of the facility. The question in terms of whether the policy is a good policy or not belongs in Lewis County, and people that advocate a no-kill policy should be presenting their case before the Lewis County Commission. But in terms of the conduct of the volunteers not being following with the paperwork they filled out to become volunteers, that's without question that it was violated. I agree with you. It was violated. The intention of violating it might have been very pure, it might have been very well intended, and I might even be sympathetic to it. But nonetheless, it was violated. And there has to be responsibility for that conduct, as unpleasant as it may be, for me or Mr. Tenney or any other commissioner sitting there, make that decision. These are not the decisions we aspire to make when we become county commissioners. These are not the things of government that we want to deal with to improve the lives of our people. But this is an issue that nonetheless has come before us, not of our making, certainly, but it is a responsibility we have as also directors or co-directors of that facility. And there's no question, can anyone say the policy was not violated, even with the best of intentions? Any of you in the chambers here who were volunteers that posted things, did you deny violating the policy that you signed?
I think the policy was wrote so it would be violated. You can't get passionate people and expect them to save animals without that policy being violated.
Well, this is the, I'll just read a couple sentences here that came from the Lewis County Commission. It says, additionally, 4 volunteers have publicly posted abusive remarks and untruths regarding a particular animal that was subject to this policy. These remarks caused great anguish to the Commission animal control officer, prosecuting attorney, and staff. In fact, because of their actions, employee spouses have been threatened at their places of occupation. Although we support each and every viewpoint and the right to express these, we do not feel it's appropriate for volunteers to question policy, launch attacks, and promote calls to county officials. These actions are defeatist in serving our combined mission of working to help the citizens and provide for our animal friends. And then they're going to make the request. So, there has to be, with passion, there still has to be some control.
And how can you be so passionate for an animal but you don't have the same passion for a human being?
For what?
For a human being?
You cannot connect the two. I've heard the argument that there is, because you're passionate for an animal does not minimize your possible passion for human beings as well. So I can't, me personally, I do not believe that as the argument.
Well, I mean, I understand, and I agree with what you're saying, but we've never had a group like this to come in and be passionate about, you know, abortion rights or, I mean, whichever way you think. We don't see those issues debated. Now, and I understand, because I love animals as much as anybody, and I'd hate to see an animal abused, but there's certain realities in the way life is. And when you have more animals come into a shelter that you can afford to keep, and I know there's been suggestions to put more runs, make bigger buildings, and all that costs money, and there's no doubt. But you also have a lady here from the library that if we spent another $100,000 out there, I think she would have a legitimate concern that she could express it. Is it not important to fund the library more than what you can? I mean, we had to cut them this year. So that's the position we're in. And the other thing we're asking people, within your you have to control your passion to stay within the law and within the agreement you sign. And if your passion cannot be, if you know, everyone has the right to take their passion to whatever height they feel they need to in any situation. And nobody can, I mean, that's a right you have, as long as it's lawful. But by the same token, if what you signed in this agreement limits that passion, then the thing to do is not sign the agreement and work in other means. Because of this being a government situation, there has to be limitations, there has to be constraints. And so the simplest way to do that is find some place that you can work where your passion is not limited like it is in this, because we don't have any recourse but to make limitations because of everything the limitations we have to work within.
Or work through the system to get Lewis County to reconsider their position. You may be unsuccessful, you may be successful, but that venue is really, if you are a volunteer, under the guidelines that you would agree to follow when you become a volunteer, that is your recourse, is to work to change their perspective, to soften their resolve in that area. Doesn't mean you're going to be successful, because again, they have a history with their prosecuting attorney that there's liability issues. And believe me, once you become an elected official and have any responsibility to the public, you understand the term liability and how that hits at every point of your operation. You can ask Mr. Edwards, the mayor for Buchanan, whether liability is an issue in his job and the city's position. Yes, it is. Ask the Board of Education. Ask any governmental body. Liability is in the forefront of any decision we make. Anything else, Jan?
Yeah, I just want, I don't know if people know who made this policy, but it wasn't staff at the shelter.
No, it is.
Megan and Jennifer put it together and brought it in front of the commissioners. This is what they decided to do after we had an incident a year ago, just to help change some things. We're just there to try to enforce it.
Well, you have to be, I hate to use the word neutral in a sense when you're dealing with animals. But you, the staff, the paid staff, has to be neutral. They cannot allow their personal feelings to conflict with what the case of the Lewis County Commission's position in this matter, or in, not in this matter, but in similar cases as well. It's not an easy job to get at. And it's not easy for volunteers who are passionate to work in an environment where they know that there may be a conflict with their conscience.
Can I say something? There is one paragraph that was outlined in the policy, the volunteer policies and procedures, that stated to increase the community and individual awareness of animal issues such as overpopulation, responsibility of pet ownership, and forming and maintaining a group of volunteers committed to the common goals of the facility. That statement alone has been removed from the new volunteer policies and procedures. So you don't want the volunteers to enrich and inform the community of the issues that's going on in our community?
I don't know if there's any question you can volunteer. That's something you do on your own in terms of your...
Well, that was outlined in the procedures, but removed.
But it goes back to the point that in making those statements on the social media, you obviously, maybe not you personally, but by posting them in such a manner that was interpreted by others, or misinterpreted by others, that led to the threats that were alleged by the Commission, some of which they provided us from photocopies of such. That would be inconsistent with that. Again, no matter how well intended fostering that information is to the public, doing so in such a way results in threats to public officials or their family, that can be tolerated. I mean, that to me is the bottom line. Using the example, does the fact that someone disagrees with the abortion rights, does that permit someone to act in violent way, which has happened in the past? No, it does not. Do certain people who are animal activists or animal rights supporters, are some of them possibly extreme as well? Has there been violence perpetrated by certain organizations or individuals? Yes, there have been. And so I think what we have to consider at this point is, when you're a volunteer and having signed that document, if you take upon yourself, no matter how well intended, I have to stress that, no matter how well intended, to go to social media or to go to some point beyond your supervisor or the commission or whatever, to act independently in what you believe is the best interest of an animal or animals, but that results in threats or serious potential. Luckily in this case there were no injuries or anything beyond threats, but threats are unsettling enough, I would believe, if I were a public official or even a private citizen.
Number one, isn't that a public facility and everything in it is public? Is that not a case where I can walk up there and say, how many animals have been put down this month?
Yes.
Okay, and anything that happens as far as, you can walk into that facility and see a dog that is vicious. You can see a dog that is sweet as can be put down. It's public information. Now, these people should not have gotten aggressive at all in what they did. I don't know anything about this. This is new to me. But they should not have talked nasty of any way to anybody. So yes, they're guilty. But in taking the interest of the animals and what these people do to save animals, should it not be taken into consideration? Like you said, they need to go to Lewis County. It's not your own. but you are the employer, so to speak, and you have the authority to say, we're going to put them on suspension. They can help outside of the facility, and we want them to continue to help, but they need to know this is not proper and you're not going to accept it again.
I don't know that you could take that approach, because you already had a violation of trust. So from the point of, I'm speaking for you, but you can speak for yourself. I suspect that she would be uncomfortable, as she's indicated in letter to us also, an issue today involving one of the same individuals at the county, Lewis County.
And also, they can't be responsible for what John Doe does because of what they passionately said, which they could be completely right in what they said. It is public information. But they can't be responsible because some idiot out here threatens the county commission.
No, but we as elected officials, county commission, has that responsibility to weigh the information, to make a decision which we believe is in the best interest of the facility, best interest of the county, and in some ways possibly the best interest of the volunteers, their passion, and maybe not exercise proper judgment.
Well, I know that maybe not in the past year, but in past years, there was many dogs being put to sleep out there.
Well,
And because of hard-working volunteers, it has changed
I think that's
tremendously.
been acknowledged by the...
Well, I'm not talking about from 10 to 6. We're talking about from 30 to 6. Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not familiar with it.
No, yes, you keep going back, I mean, the numbers are getting better every year.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got Facebook now. You have, all the websites.
That she wants to get rid of.
That was built 10 years ago. And the network, and more rescues coming involved. And it's something we're doing all the time. We do Pet Finder, we do our website, we do Facebook. You're talking to your rescue saying, hey, we need you to pull this, we've got this coming in, we have boarding cases coming in, can you help us? It's the rescues, it's the staff, it's the volunteers, it's all working together. That's just that we have to work together.
I think that, from what I gathered from what you said, and from certainly Lewis County's position at that, Risha's trust has been violated to the point where I don't know that, in case of your recommendation, I don't know that the Lewis County Commission would retreat or would reconsider their request based on what their communication jammed. It would appear that they are very firm, I think you've indicated, in their position on their policy.
Well, so are you all going to vote on to carry out Lewis County? I mean, I don't quite understand the process here. Maybe I'm confused a little
We're not
bit.
going to vote on Lewis County's ordinance or their policy. That is their policy, not our policy.
Okay, but you will be voting on whether to...
To retain volunteers.
Yes, okay. So that is what I was asking.
At the request of Lewis County. And it'd be like we had an issue with regards to any matter regarding personnel, whether paid or volunteer, which we had issues with. And if roles were reversed, if the facility were located in Lewis County, we had to request co-employers that had been previously with us. You have to weigh that. You have to weigh their concerns. You have to weigh their requests seriously. Because if we are to continue our mutual working together, we've got to take consideration, for what their observations are, their requests are. Is there any other additional comments? Yes.
Matt?
Sure. yourself to the hearing.
Okay. Hi, good morning. I'm Elisa Miller, and it's not a very well-kept secret in Upshur County, or Lewis, that I am an advocate for animals. I've helped in many different capacities. I usually try to restrict myself to fundraising only because I can't handle seeing an animal put down. I have trouble handling it even when it's one of mine, and it's for the best. I still don't do well with that. Couple of things. First off, it's been mentioned about social media, and I'm going to use this in a way that it doesn't just pertain to this, but it pertains to a lot of things. There are a lot of people, and it may be because of their health, it may be because of their physical limitations, it may be because, you know, they don't like to go out of their home. But there are a lot of people, I think, that get on social media as a way of connecting with others and having friends with mutual interests. And I'll admit, I've even encountered people who, when it comes to the issue of animal safety, animal protection, animal cruelty, they make me look pretty tame. And JC, you and Donnie both have encountered me a few times about one issue or another pertaining to animals and pets. My first question for you all to ponder, I don't expect you to answer it now, but my first question for you to ponder is, have you ever thought about getting with the Lewis County Commission and saying, okay guys, we've got this shelter in common. And I don't know where Rick comes into this, but does the city, okay, wait a minute, but does the city actually own the shelter? No. Okay, so it's all county. All right.
There's city's only participation.
Okay.
You do have participation.
Yeah, they have, I know. Okay. Anyway, and that's something else that needs to be discussed, but anyway, that can be done at a later time. Anyway, getting with the Lewis County Commission and asking if it's not time to sit down and give serious consideration to developing a policy. When a dog comes in, because it's my understanding this dog did come in from another county, right? Did it come in?
She can give it the details.
It did come in from Lewis County. And looking to see, does the dog have a biting history? Has the dog bitten a number of people? Because there's a big difference between a dog that, you know, gets somebody one time and a dog that's bitten multiple people.
I think the policy in Lewis County is you can't develop a history because it bites one time.
Well, and this is what I'm saying. Should maybe there be, because a lot of areas outside of West Virginia even have a policy in place where if you're, and there's actually in fact a legal group called the Lexus Project, that if this gets taken to court, will come in and defend the animal. They won't defend the people, but they will defend on behalf of the animal. Could they not maybe consider tweaking that policy a little bit to where if Donnie has a dog, and I'm out riding my bike someday, and if I go down the road, the dog runs out and bites me, and I have to have stitches. Well, could it not be considered that instead of grabbing the dog immediately and killing it, do what some of the other areas have done, which is mandate that dog is immediately seized, it is held in quarantine to watch and make sure it doesn't have any issues like rabies, but then it can only be released to a group or an organization that deals with the acquirement and retraining of dogs that are deemed vicious.
Well, see there again, that's an issue that needs to be taken to the Lewis County Commission.
Well, actually, it might be a consideration here as well, because it's my understanding that we've got some dogs in the city limits.
Well, sure, we got dogs in the city limits.
Yeah, has there recently been a complaint about somebody with pit bulls, and they've been driving the neighborhood crazy?
All right, let me, if you don't mind it. Clarify, we do have an ordinance 300, Animal Care and Control Commission. It is designed behind Ordinance 300.
Unfortunately, I will tell you this, as you guys, we are fully aware, they have not met since 2001, and we are now trying to reconvene that. There is within our ordinance, just for reference sake, that we treat the same issue with vicious dogs and repeat offenders of, which they are required, and our municipal judge has a say in, and the commission and the mayor has a say to say whether or not that dog should be euthanized. According to the ordinance as it is now, though, it is almost a requirement that if an animal is a vicious animal and attacks a human being or other animal or pet, that yes, consideration for euthanasia is almost immediate. Now, that has not been enforced, I will tell you that. We are pretty lenient with our issues with dogs, and to what Melissa is asking, as far as a pit bull attack. I believe Jan may be aware as well that there have been an issue with 1 or 2 pit bulls, which is kind of the reason why we are now thinking to address it again. That's all I can say on that, really.
And our position is not the same as Lewis County, as has been run up.
Could you guys get together and try to come up with common?
We've already got our policy.
No, I
It's
mean,
Lewis County that you
Lewis
have to
County.
change the policy to your liking. We have no, they have, as stated in the letter, 3 successive prosecuting attorneys in Lewis County have made the recommendation that the ordinance or the rules that are in place for dogs that bite humans be terminated, euthanized, because of liability issues. That is, from what I can understand, etched in stone, because Jan has indicated that when she called the county administrator, and when she called, secondly, she called at the request of the commissioner, she returned both calls, and on both occasions, she was adamantly told the dog is to be put down. There is not a change in policy in Lewis County. They have responsibility for Lewis County. It's not that we don't communicate with them. It's not that we don't discuss matters of mutual interest with them. But when it becomes a matter of policy, they have to make their policy. This policy that has been adopted by Lewis County, which may appear to be more lenient in its impact, is one that we feel very comfortable with. The policy they have, which has been in existence apparently for a good number of years, is a policy that they believe is the proper policy. The only way that really can be considered changed would be if the commission had people appear before it, similar to those appearing before us today, voicing their concerns, were to change the hearts or the minds or establish a different legal principle with the prosecuting attorneys. I know as commissioners we rely very heavily on legal opinion. That goes to the liability question. It may be, in my personal opinion, that a certain course of action may be taken, not just with animals, but with how we affect a decision of the county commission. But if the prosecuting attorney or other legal authority that is familiar with the issue at hand is being considered gives a firm opinion that this is the opinion, the legal opinion, and this is the case history, the precedents, there have been other similar issues resolved previously, and that if you follow your heart, not your head or your brain, that you will open up the county to liability, then I have to look out for the county's interests. It may be the commissioners themselves aren't comfortable with the policy, but for reasons as stated, and I can't speak for them because I never discussed the issue with them. I doubt Mr. Tenney has. Have you? So, you know, it may be that they might personally not like that, but if they're told by their legal authorities that that is what you have to do to protect the county citizens of Lewis County, then it is pretty imperative that they follow the legal opinions, or they don't do so at their own threat. I'm sorry, that is standard. As I said, the mayor will tell you that. Anyone who is in business would reflect that same opinion or position. Many of the matters we make decisions on, not just this. You're not comfortable making those decisions, and you wish you could avoid those decisions. But by virtue of sitting at this bench, or sitting in the chambers of City Hall, by being the representative of the public, you have to make those decisions, no matter how personally repugnant they might be. And that's not easy. It's not. I'm not going to cry on your shoulder. That's not the purpose of it. But if people think this is always an easy job, you come in and you could easily off the cuff make a decision that affects so many people and so many issues. It affects things that, like the clothing of the pet. Yeah, people are animal lovers. I'm an animal lover, and I would never want to see one abused or hurt. But when that conflicts, which it does apparently in this case, then I have to make a decision based on what I believe to be the best interest of the county. I can't avoid voting. I can't avoid making a decision. It's not allowable under the rules that I have.
Can these volunteers be placed on probation, knowing that if they do it again, I mean, they stand to lose a lot at the shelter if these people are gone. Look at the money that they have raised, the fundraisers they do, the volunteers, the cleaning, the transport. That's going to go away.
They can just be banned from going inside the facility. And I would add this.
No, they can't.
I mean, this is a difficult situation at best, because this is a situation that occurred in a neighboring county. However, fortunately / unfortunately, Upshur County is caught in having to, I wouldn't say do business with, but work with that county.
On a multitude of areas.
Well, but in this particular case, as far as the Lewis Upshur Animal Control Facility is concerned. A minute ago you mentioned that you can't compare an animal's life to that of a human.
I did not mention that.
I didn't say you did. It was brought up that you can't. I will say this. If we're talking about a cross between an animal and an infant or a toddler child, you're absolutely right. When it comes to adults, I've seen situations, I've personally witnessed situations where people have claimed that, an animal did something, it bit them viciously. And were it not for the animal welfare groups and the volunteers stepping up, that animal would be dead today. Again, I'll reference the Lexus Project. And there was a case in Arkansas where this person claimed that this dog bit her child, and somehow the kid got marks on him, but the best part was there was a bite. And once the Lexus Project came in and it went to court, one of the first things that derailed the whole case for the mother and the child was the fact that when they brought in the experts, it was determined that was not a canine bite. It was a human bite. And of course she was going to try to sue. The point is, instead of immediately taking the dog and killing it, some people intervened illegally, probably, and only because that area first put the dog someplace where even the owners couldn't visit it. So then somehow they found out where the dog was, and some people went in and seized the dog and put the dog in hiding. And in fact, it was rumored the dog was taken 3 states away and sold during the sale. Well, thank God somebody sold away the reason. And that dog is still alive, and sometime in the next few months you're going to see a movie based on this whole case. Now, you're right in that Upshur County can't make the Lewis County Commission do anything they are or are not willing to do. But what I'd like to say on behalf of the volunteers, there have been situations that I know of
the people have seen, the facility needed volunteers. And when I tried to, suggest maybe they apply to go out, you can't do it. And I said, why? Well, you don't know how it works out there. You go out there, and if you piss anybody off, you're on the list, and then you won't be allowed to pull animals. You won't be, in fact, you'll be told that you can't come back. Now, I used to volunteer with the American Heart Association when the back was here in town. We never turned a volunteer away. Now, there were some that couldn't work together. You always have that. But nobody was ever turned away. In this case, the volunteers, anybody that loves animals, is going to get upset about this because that is their nature. They want to protect the animals. I don't necessarily feel that it's fair because of this particular incident to drop 4 volunteers. I could see maybe suspending them. I could see maybe giving them a professional timeout. I could see putting something in writing saying, we're giving you this warning. This isn't baseball. You don't get 3 strikes, 1 more, and that's it. But if you based it solely on what was posted on social media, it's been a little over a year ago, I could have run up here and stood in this very spot and complained about the fact that a paid employee of Upshur County had failed to follow the standards set forth at that facility. And when some other people had been vocal about it, when I joined in and voiced my concerns, and yes, I did pass on the pictures, because these were pictures, I believe I shared them with you, Mr. Reddick. It was obvious the cages weren't being cleaned, the animals weren't being fed and watered properly. And do you know what happened? That employee, offspring, proceeded to send me, and I think I still have them saved, some of the nastiest, most vicious emails and Facebook messages that I've ever received. Now keep my mind with a passion.
And what was your response to that? Did you feel...
Oh, let me explain my response to that. Was, in fact, romantically connected to one of my neighbors. And so, yes, no, wait a minute. So, yes, I was concerned. I was concerned for my pets, and I was concerned for my property.
For your safety as well?
Oh, yeah. When you're told, we will catch you, you will regret this.
Well, this is the same type of language or worse that was directed against employees in Lewis County.
And yet,
if you're telling me that you get upset or felt threatened of property damage or personal injury because of these postings on social media, how much more, or not, the employees and the officials in Lewis County would feel the similar way that you felt?
Only I didn't ask for anybody's termination. I didn't even come in and ask that you all reprimand the individual.
But we kind of going all around the Calder's bench on this one. We pretty much talked about all the possibilities and all the issues and whatever. But it's a matter where the Lewis County Commission they're the ones that have made the request. They're the ones that were if there's a term to use, victims. Their employees and officials are the victims. Maybe not directly at the hand of the volunteers, but because, again, social media, other people get involved who are more or less aggressive or more passionate. And that passion can go to the point where murder is considered a crime of passion. Yet someone gets murdered because it's committed by someone with passionate reasons. Does that make them any less responsible? No. I'm not comparing this to murder, but people can be motivated by the least of things. Something to you that you brush off your back never bothers you. Other people take to heart and they fester it, they grow it, they continue to think about it, and then at some point they will or can't act on it. It's evidenced by any number of incidents that occurred in recent past. And I think that is what Lewis County considers a problem with the way in which the volunteers exercise their passion. And I know some of them, I know them to be good people. But
How
I
many
think we need to bring
volunteers,
this to a vote.
how many volunteers at our shelter are from Lewis County? I've never broken it down.
How many active volunteers would you say we have out there?
Active?
We've been quite a few.
Yes,
Well,
we have 4 more
we
today.
do a group a lot, but a lot of them, like, there's a lot of college students that just come along on their schedules and stuff. Active on a daily basis, we have one that's usually there every day. We have one that's there like 3 days a week. Then we have the others that come in like 1 to 2 days a week. They're walking dogs or transporting. Saturdays, we're seeing about 3 usually that are always there. Excuse me for that. So the first 2 that you mentioned that come in basically once a day and are very active, are they from Lewis County? One of them. Okay, and then the 3 that come in on Saturdays, are any of them from Lewis County? So one, I think she's from Lost Creek, and the other, and I think 2 of them are from Lost Creek actually, and one is from Upshur County. There's no, Lost Creek is Harrison County, am I right? My question then would be, you know, in order to not see the facility lose 4 volunteers, which again I would go back to one possible solution being you slap their hands hard and give them a timeout, and then maybe consider having 1 or more of the commissioners meet with all of the volunteers and say, in order to be maintained as a volunteer, you know, if we meet once or twice a year, you will be required to attend the meeting. And talk to them about, you know, what problems do they see, what solutions do they, don't not just present problems, but actually try to give solutions to them. And that may leave a little bit of the threat. It's just that my concern is, when it comes to animal advocacy, you hear this a lot, and it was spoken by a very, very, very intelligent man. Albert Einstein once said, the world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who see evil and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If you are truly a lover of animals and an advocate of animals, that is pretty much the core of your beliefs. And many times that quotes apply to other situations. But in this case, first off, can the facility afford to lose 4 volunteers, which I don't think it can? And secondly, you're right, absolutely no one should be threatened. No one should have been. But if I post something about not liking the weather, and somebody then goes nuts and just sends WDTV a threat saying that they're going to come over and kill the weather person, that's my fault. I'm not supposed to post about the weather anymore?
Well, let me ask you a question, because it's come up a couple issues, a couple times here about something of a lesser punishment than dismissal. Now, Jan, why don't you stand up there just a second, if you don't mind, Elizabeth. Remind us and tell everyone what our policy is as far as infractions against the agreement. Do we fire people the first time they do something wrong? Or what's our policy?
I think if you have a total proof that somebody that's an employee of the county did something wrong, without a shadow of doubt, you fire us. There would be no other chance. In our policy agreement, before the new policy came out, that Kelly and Carrie put together, it was a write-up, or a verbal, and then a write-up, and then you could be dismissed. Of little things at the shelter, but I would say I could give you a verbal, then I could give you a write-up that you have to sign, and then you could be dismissed. But I have only asked for 1 volunteer to be dismissed. And the other ones have come from Lewis County, which is the co-partner.
Which also contains the individual that you requested.
I guess my question is, these other 4 individuals, have they gone through the verbal?
One has had a verbal and a write-up.
Okay. So one you've done what people are requesting.
Yeah.
To go through that process. And then you feel that there's some infractions that are in our policy. I guess that's what we need to get by. Are there some infractions that would necessitate going straight to the end result as far as dismissal, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know what Lewis County got. I don't know what proof they have. I have not seen the letters that came into them or anything like that. I found out the same way that the volunteers found out. I read it in the paper. And then later I was informed who the 4 volunteers were. But I had no idea that Lewis County was making this recommendation until it was in the paper. So I don't know what they have done. So if they have broke 2 or 3 of these things that's in the policy, then yes. I mean,
And on that note, I would say I would sincerely hope, and I'm not a volunteer out there for the reasons I stated earlier, but I would sincerely hope that if I were a volunteer and the Upshur County Commission were giving any thought at all to telling me that I could no longer come out there, I could no longer even walk dogs, I would sincerely hope that before you did that, you actually saw what proof they had, and talked it over with Jan.
We have seen the emails that
Right.
they sent to us along with the cover letter.
Well,
So there is some very vile things stated in emails relative to some of the officials, and
my question would be, and I'm not trying to muddy the waters here, but are they sure that the emails in fact came from where it says they came from?
No, they're Facebook posts. It's pretty obvious.
Oh, well, then, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily the 4 employees or the 4 volunteers. I'm not saying that they are the ones that sent these particular emails, but there's a causation, a connection between their postings on social media and what other people did from their postings, possibly. But again, the issue relative as to the justification, we're acting on a request from Lewis County Commission. They've requested in their cover letter that we remove these volunteers as volunteers. Their reasons are known to them, totally, other than what they've shared with us.
Could I please ask that instead of making the decision today, you all talk to those commissioners?
You can talk to the commission. I've explained this, that the matter should be brought by the interested parties to the Lewis County Commission, because they are the ones that have the policy that is in question here, not the Upshur County Commission.
But
I
they're
can't argue for them or against them. You have to present, not you personally, but anyone who has a matter of interest in this needs to appear before the Lewis County Commission, to get the matter resolved. Now, Mr. Tenney earlier requested, or suggested we might postpone this to allow interested parties to appear before the Lewis County Commission. I have no problem with that. If that were a motion, do you make that as a motion, Mr. Tenney?
I just think that waiting a couple weeks is not going to make that much difference in what we do. And it's going to
It'll be 2 weeks because we do not.
Right.
Does Lewis County meet before then, though, in 2 weeks?
on Monday.
They meet on Monday, so they'll probably meet next Monday. I mean, we're talking about 2 different issues here, really.
Okay.
But the purpose to go to the Lewis County Commission would be to encourage them to change their policy. That would be the issue there.
Barring that, barring their changing the policy, they are still on record requesting that we remove the volunteers. And for reasons we've stated a number of times during this meeting, we would be required to seriously consider their request because they are co-operators, co-employers, terminology that was used, of the facility. It'd be the same as if we had a reason to request that they reciprocate some matter because our commission found a grievance or something with some of the volunteers. If the roles were reversed, you would request that they might act. They would have to go through the same procedure as we are.
I think it would be quite acceptable if you all would decide to at least give it a week. 2 weeks would be great.
Well, Monday is less than 2 weeks, if you're talking about them meeting next Monday.
And it depends on how quickly you can get on their agenda.
You'd have to contact them like you do us, at least a couple of days in advance to get the agenda put together.
But I think that would be great, and I think for the most part, most people could live with that.
But it may come back to us because you may or may not be successful in your pleading before the Lewis County Commission.
Well, and that would be the other issue. I mean, the changing of their policy is one issue, but that's not the imminent issue, which would be, and this is, I guess, the decision we have to make today. Do we want to allow these individuals who've been requested by Lewis County to have an opportunity to plead their case to Lewis County before we make a decision? That's the question we face today.
I think that would be fair.
Fair.
Well, that's why I asked Jan, because we do have a request from Jan to dismiss someone today, and I guess my question is the other individuals that Lewis County's requesting we dismiss have the same steps been taken.
For one.
Verbal, the written.
For one, the other two have never had anything.
Okay, so one's had a verbal.
One's had a verbal and a write-up.
Okay, and that's not the one you're asking to be dismissed today?
No.
Okay, that's another. So
That's another.
there's one that's had a verbal and a write-up.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Jan? I mean, I certainly don't want Lewis County Commission to think that we're just thumbing our nose and passing the buck back to them, but by the same token, I think, I'm not law enforcement, what's that saying about everyone has the right to face their future?
No, it's Constitution.
Oh, it's not. Maybe that makes the decision a little easier. But, you know, we've been given some information, and along with the request from Lewis County. I guess my only concern is that we follow our procedure. Unless in our policy it says that if something's egregious enough at this level, then you don't have a verbal, you don't have a written, you just fire them. And I don't know that that's it.
I don't know that that states that.
Well,
Verbal, write-up.
that would be my only concern, that we have a policy, and unless the policy says, okay, if it's to the point where everyone agrees that it's just so outrageous, so egregious, that you don't get a verbal, you don't get a written, and then you're out.
Lewis County Commission would probably believe that is the case they believe from stating in the letter that the threats which have caused, the alleged threats, that have caused harm to the employees and officials is their basis for requesting termination.
Well, if you're considering, postponing any action for dismissal of those volunteers, it would certainly be my recommendation for liability for the county that you at least place those volunteers on a probationary period, that they're not allowed to be at the animal control facility until they're able to go to Lewis County, make their claim, and it comes back to you for final action. I think that's something that the county might want to consider.
The only concern there I have is in previous cases, we've been advised you cannot use the word probationary because that implies permanent position.
Well, but I think in this would be a little different situation than probationary employment. This would just be, again, what's your thoughts on that? Suspension until we get word back to Lewis County, and then if Lewis County is adamant, then we'll deal with it.
But you have indicated earlier that you would, as part of this understanding, if we were to take that route, that they as a condition, obligate themselves to appear before the county commission in Lewis County to resolve this issue. Is that your recollection?
Right, I mean, I think that, isn't that what's been asked?
I mean, it's contingent on making that decision.
So that you can go to Lewis County Commission? Is that what's been asked?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of this. Otherwise, we'll just take their recommendation. I think what we're doing is giving an opportunity to go to Lewis County, plead your case. If they say, no, we're going to change their mind, then that'll be the recommendation and back and forth on that. We're basically giving you an opportunity to plead your case, and I do agree. I think suspension, I think it's hard. I would move that we postpone for 2 weeks with the understanding that the volunteers will go to Lewis County Commission, plead their case. They'll be suspended during that time period until she comes back to us, and then we'll make a decision based on the facts that happened as a result of that meeting. That would be my
There being a motion, I'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
You gentlemen from Mr. Goss's class.
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
One of the issues was not addressed, and that concerns me. My name is Brenda Lee, and Dan does,
Well, we have that matter to still come up now.
obviously we...
We'll let you talk in just a minute if you want to.
Opening, we're starting back up. I thought you had to go.
Okay, I'll reconvene this
Love you.
session of the Upshur County Commission. We now have items for discussion. Okay, correspondence from Janella Cochran, Lewis Upshur Animal Control Facility Supervisor, recommending dismissal of Brenda Lee. Dan, would you like to comment? Send a letter to us making that recommendation to the court. Your supporting statement.
With Brenda Lee, first she's had a verbal warning on behavior, and she's done, of course, the policy agreement that it's not supposed to be done. And then she has, I think, a write-up on August 27th, I do believe, that she signed, where she was not carrying on a harmonious relationship with an adopter that had come up and adopted. She had went out to his car and confronted him so much he just wanted to get out of there, because he said he never felt like hitting a woman, but he felt like hitting her. So he wasn't very happy with her. Then while I was out sick for having a virus, she confronted John Snyder out in the parking lot and jumped all over him.
The John Snyder.
The animal control officer of Lewis County, which another county employee had seen and come and talked to Kelly about, and then called me when I came back to work and informed me of the matter. And that's how, between Kelly and him, that's how I knew about the matter. John never had said anything to me about it. With that, right there, again, not holding that harmonious relationship with the staff or an adopter, that was my decision to send the letter.
And some photographs that were taken of a particular dog.
Yeah, there was a photograph taken of a dog that was in quarantine that has been said that Brenda took. I can't prove that Brenda took one. But the rule is for any dog that's in quarantine, there is no photos taken, no contact by any volunteers to the dog. Staff is the one that sees it, takes care of it, and everything else.
Well, if there's no evidence or proof that photographs were taken, we can't consider that
Right.
as any evidence you read.
May I ask, where was the dog quarantined at? Was he in a quarantine?
He doesn't have to be in the quarantine room to be quarantined. As
Well,
long as this page says quarantine, he's
Was
quarantined.
it signs on the outside kennel part that said that the dog was
But
in quarantine?
no, there's no,
there wasn't.
there's none on the quarantine room that says that. But the rule
Oh.
states no pictures of dogs taken by the kennel.
So how would, like, if I went up, how would I know
Excuse
that?
me, This has to do with me. For the public to be warned of a vicious dog, they can walk up and down the kennel run and this.
Yep, after he comes out his 10-day holding period, yes.
There's no warning that says this dog is vicious, may bite. I've seen signs that say may bite,
Right.
but there was nothing that said the dog may bite. But it probably could go up to the fingers in there.
No, because when they come through the thing, we tell them, watch case, whatever.
But on the outside,
No.
The dog was not in an enclosed quarantine room.
Because he was already out of his quarantine period. He had to put
And
the
we are allowed to take photos on the outside of the facility.
outside, not into the.
There was no, it doesn't say that. There's no photos taken from inside the facility.
and you cannot prove that.
Well, it was not an issue, I've already stated that, because she indicated she hadn't approved it, it's not.
Because I respect, and I understand policy always tells us no photos from the inside, unless we get permission that, hey, this home's real scared, can't really get it outside and get a photo. We ask you. I don't have any problems. You family shoot,
Exactly. But that wasn't the reason that I sent the letter. It was the behavior she had with John Snyder in the parking lot that another county employee felt offensive.
Is there documentation of verbal confrontation, or this hearsay?
This is this employee going to Kelly, the administrator.
Two men out there with me as a woman, seeing a dog, an innocent dog, getting ready to die an unnecessary death, and you've got somebody saying that I had a verbal confrontation. You weren't there, so where are these witnesses today?
Oh, I didn't bring them, but the one witness already spoke to the administrator about it.
Is it documented? I like to know what was said for my, I like to know what was said.
Were you there?
On that parking lot?
And you said it?
Said what?
Well, you know what was said.
I don't know what was said.
I don't know what
you're
was
talking.
said. Just in the way that you were in his face, pointing your finger, and the things that you said. I don't know. They never said what you said.
Did John also tell you that I have spoken to him since all of that? We've been on the parking lot. He wanted to see my, cell phone. He wanted to see something on Facebook. We're brushed up against each other. I mean, close. What's going on? I have spoken to John since then.
Yeah, it's not because you spoke to John since then. It's how you spoke to him that day by not carrying on a harmonious relationship with a staff member, or whether it be a volunteer or be the public. Not only that, you went to a person that brought an animal in.
But we're talking about this incident, the reason that the volunteers are on this agenda today, because of one incident regarding a dog.
That dog. There's two incidents. You're on the agenda because I sent the letter to ask for your removal.
That is correct, because of the John Snyder verbal confrontation had to do with that dog being euthanized. Right.
Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Was this the same dog that was initially held in that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everybody is very emotional, very emotional.
But it was also, you confronted a person dropping an animal off, asked them if their animal sick, well, that's their problem, you know, we asked that. And then when they told you no, you told them that they pretty much signed the death warrant of their animal.
Wow.
By not having it fixed because it's something harder for us.
Doesn't policy state before it was removed for the new revision that we are to bring public awareness and educate as much as we can to the public about you're getting ready to surrender your dog or your cat to this facility. There was no guarantee that this dog would ever go back out this front door. The public needs to know that.
do.
It's a kill shelter.
Exactly.
So where did I violate anything?
It's the tone you use with the person.
How do you know?
Because one of my staff members...
There we go, hearsay. I mean,
We're not a court of law, so hearsay is admitted, I would believe.
where is that witness?
Well, I don't think this was a trial today.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you just had me here to just, if if you had any questions, you could ask me.
I'm going to make a recommendation to the supervisor of that facility. We have Mr. Harris on this. So we'll move on. I'll move on to the next item and come back to this. That reportedly was a witness to the confrontation between you and Mr. Snyder. Okay, we have item number 6, approval of Lewis County Animal Control Facility volunteer. We have 4 volunteers requested: Justin Dines, Aaron Bunby, Connor Nichols, and Matthew Ferris. Is there a motion to approve those volunteers? I'll second it. All in favor say aye. On the same sign, motion carried. Next, the appointment of interim prosecuting attorney effective December 1, 2014 position. We have, going now back to the issue, which is the item number 4 on the agenda, the recommendation by Janelle Cochran, the administrator to the supervisor of the Lewis Cup Animal Control Facility, recommended dismissal of Brenda Lee. Ms. Lee, and this letter has requested that if anyone was a witness to a supported confrontation that she had with the animal control facility officer from Lewis County, Mr. Snyder, that individual verified the information contained in Jan's letter requesting her removal as a volunteer. The letter contains the information that Greg Harris, our facilities manager, was present during that conversation. Greg, is that accurate? Were you present during that conversation?
Yes.
Could you please take the microphone and identify yourself for the viewing audience as well as your position with the county?
I'm Greg Harris, the Director of Facility Operations here for the county.
Have you had a chance to read Jan's letter? But
I have not, no.
Okay, I will read it. It's on page. It's a short letter, but in one paragraph in length, but I'll read it. Dated November 6, 2014. Commissioners, it is my recommendation that volunteer Brenda Lee be excused from volunteering at the Lewis Upshur Animal Control Facility. Excuse me. She was written up on August 27, 2014 for failure to have a harmonious relationship with the public. This is part of the agreement she signed in the volunteer program policies and procedures. And on October 27, 2014, she had a confrontation with the Lewis County Animal Control Officer John Snyder in an unprofessional matter over a dog that was in quarantine. Greg Harris, Upshur County Maintenance Supervisor, was also witness to this and reported it to County Administrator Kelly Cunningham. It has also been brought to my attention that Brenda Lee also took pictures of the same dog. Well, we won't go to that part because we dismissed that as a concern because there was no proof or witnessing of that allegation. So as to the conversation between Animal Control Officer John Snyder and Ms. Lee, did that take place at the Animal Control Facility?
I would request a session with you all to discuss this stuff.
Executive session.
Well, and that would be determined if Ms. Lee wants to go in executive session or open session. It's her students that will be discussing issues about her.
Do you agree to executive session, Ms. Lee, or public session or executive session? One is a closed hearing, the other is a public hearing.
That's fine.
Public hearing.
Well, you know, I think this was issues against someone's moral character, and I don't know that it needs to be discussed out here in the open.
Okay, there's alleged comments made where...
Well, the law says she has the right to be in open session or executive session. I agree, it would be an executive session issue, but the kicker here is if the individual that we're going to discuss chooses to be in, it's up to them whether it's an open session or executive session to discuss. Now, I would say that basically all we need here today is your witness. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, I don't think.
Was a confrontation.
We have a request from Jan that she be dismissed, that there were incidents that happened, one of which you were a witness of, and you know, you can say, was it a confrontational, and you can verify what Jan is saying without going into a lot of detail.
Not use quotes, but you could say if the language was demeaning or if there were personal epithets that were directed at the individual, if there was a confrontational issue. I don't think it'd be necessary that you quote the exact language, but just qualify it as being extremely derogatory or unprofessional, however you want to describe it in your own opinion.
Well, I would agree that there was a confrontation. You know, other than that, I don't know that I need to go any farther. You know, I've verified that what Jan said there, so at that point, I'll take the bid.
Is there hostility, was there a hostile confrontation or electoral confrontation?
I don't know that you call it hostile, but, you know, it was a confrontation.
Is there a motion, Mr. Kenny?
I would move to approve the recommendation of having animal control salary director.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
There's one other thing here that you might want to have Jan to be able to talk to. I'm not sure, this is just a note that Terry left me, having to do with ticketing. Yeah. Is that something that you want to review with the commission, Jan?
It has to do with our spay and neuter agreement, where people sign an agreement that they'll have their animals spayed or neutered. And if they don't comply, they can be fined. In the past, no one has ever been fined. I have talked to Willie numerous times when he was here about it, and he was like, it would cost the county more money to take them to court to fine them.
What is the fine?
It can, up to $250, no less than $150 and up to $250.
Right.
Carrie said she went down and talked to the magistrate, and they said it would be, I think, $75
For one dependent, or two dependent would be
$100. So that would be if both husband and wife both put their signature on there, it would be $100. And I sent Terry a message, does that mean that they would have that court cost on top of their ticket, or would the county, that's what the county has to
Well,
do?
in court costs like that, the
It was-
individual. has
That's
to
what I
pay.
thought too,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand when Willie had told me that,
Yeah.
because John and I have been working on, we went back to some of Mike, because if Mike got a disconnected number, he just left it at that. So John has took all the ones I kept and passed them on, and he's going to be going, he's tried phone numbers, and then he's making the door stop too,
Well, I
for the ones that
understand.
haven't complied. So we want to start writing tickets that we have never been allowed to in the past to do.
You're talking about John Slaughter?
Yes,
Yes, not John Snyder.
right.
Okay. Now, as I recall, that was one of the issues in this case in Lewis County as well, that this dog.
This dog had been adopted,
Had been
yeah.
adopted, the adopters
Gave the dog to
gave the
somebody
dog
else.
away without knowledge of their
Right.
shelter. And had bitten,
Then the new adopters, I guess, him
the county
and,
was not going after
Right.
the people for not living up to their.
right. The agreement goes, it's 30 days you have to get it done, and then we have another 30 days to get it approved. So the proof had just got turned in, and November when we pulled those records anyway, which, John has to set at the shelter, I haven't seen him to get him. And John Snyder, or John Slaughter, sorry, he has this. When he come on, I explained to him, I said, what all have you been told about what you do? And we talked, and he's like, okay. And I said, well, you have this too. And I said, we'll let you get settled into your job, and then we will sit down, we will take all of these, and I'll explain to you how we do them. So that, he has been working on that.
Well, I know that's an issue that was raised.
Right. And I believe they should be taken.
But that's a matter that rests with Lewis County.
Right.
No.
But, I mean, but we can, do we have your permission for John Slaughter to ticket people if they do not comply?
Is that the policy?
That's the policy. And it's state law.
State law.
Policy.
Okay.
Now, is this a situation where they have to pay the $50, they forfeit the $50?
They forfeit the $50 if they don't have it done by a certain amount of time.
Okay, and what percentage of them don't actually have proof that they're actually following through? Is it a high percentage?
Yeah, I say about maybe 25%. Because a lot of your dogs are going to rescue, so you don't have them, because the rescues have their best stuff. And when we first start working with the rescue sends back proof that it was done. Then after that, we don't, because they've already taken on the responsibility, that they will, it's their responsibility as the rescue. We have talked to their references they have gave us from the vets and asked what all they do at their vet when they bring a dog in. And then, and we don't really have offenders, we don't have you, but they don't do it once. They don't usually come back to adopt again. But you have the people that, someone will tell you that it died of poverty, they'll call, and they'll be like, yeah, I adopted a puppy and it died of poverty, or I had a dog and it was hit by a car. Someone will be nice and they will call you. And I really do believe probably the ones that are calling us and informing us are probably telling the truth. But John still has those, he has pictures, he has pictures of the dog. He still plans on making door stops. And the ones that now, they haven't complied and John's going back on and it's been forever, and they never called us to tell us. And some of them have had it done. And they're like, we don't want to take the dog to the vet, it was already safe. Well, we didn't know that because you didn't send us any proof. We still need to know.
But he's gonna determine that first before he takes it recorded.
Oh, yeah,
As much as
yeah,
possible.
exactly.
Give them an opportunity to explain.
Yeah, some people honestly told me, no, we haven't had it done, we've been going through a divorce, or we forgot, we didn't realize it was, we had to do this, even though it was in the contract and they signed it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, we'll pay some bills, but I will say this has been not a fair on the commission. This has been the most emotional and draining days in terms of issues to discuss. In your 18 years, Mr. Chairman, you have any?
Oh, this is, I think probably the bill is for me, but probably the most about it. We were concerned about $10, $15.
I was gonna bring them over, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
You just,